Give it!
Pocket sand.
Hey guys, my name's DocJade and welcome to Sandustry, an automation game about, well, sand. Without further ado, let's get started. There's a bit of an intro cutscene I've skipped, but in summary, basically we're here to refine resources into gold. Touching down ever so gently, I'll limp my way through the tutorial. Running, jumping, flying, and mining out the ground. Which yields sand that we can pick up, get wet, then shake vigorously back and forth to turn that wet sand into gold, before finally putting it into a collector. We also get some residue as byproduct. Taking a gander at the research tree, we get to unlock Shaker, which will automate this whole shaking nonsense. To use it, we just drop the wet sand on the top and gold falls out the bottom. Simple as that. Doing that a couple times to get our money up, we can now buy logistics, which unlocks belts and launchers. The tutorial tries to yellow paint me here to teach me how the launcher works, but I'd rather experiment. Yep, the launcher launches things. Who would have thunk? I don't think belts need any explanation, so in goes the sand using launchers to suck it up vertically and sprinkle it over the shakers. After learning how copy and paste works, the guardrails are finally off, and we can start having some real fun. Our first goal is to sift out 4,000 wet sand. Instead of using that tiny starter puddle though, a bit to the right is a much bigger pond that we can use instead. I'll make a new collection area for the gold, new shakers, and set up an area that will dump all of our leftover residue into. Being from Utah, soaking is practically second nature to me, so throwing some sand into the lake, up it goes, and doesn't really do much once it hits the shaker. Looks like the residue is blocking the sand. Luckily the sand slides down when you pile it up though, so we can just toss it over here with a launcher to get things moving. Kinda like jumping on the bed. Even further to our right is whatever that is. I couldn't find a way to get inside of it, so I'll just go back to digging, which quickly revealed a little cave. Well, maybe I can get inside of that structure from the side. Nope. Ah, whatever. We needed to dig out all of this anyways to chuck it into the lake. The wet sand, however, is sliding down a bit too fast and thus isn't being turned into gold. But thankfully we can unlock filters to pull the sand back out instead of chucking it over the wall. I did find a funny issue where I managed to recreate a ram pump by moving all the wet sand up this pipe, which made it fill up with water. So I had to pull out all the sand so we could get things moving more gradually instead. But this does give us a good time to redesign the sorting setup. Instead of filtering excess wet sand out the bottom, we'll sort out the residue instead, and send everything else back up again to loop around the shaking setup. Gently reintroducing the sand, and that's working a lot better now. I was also able to add a second layer of shakers since the gold will fall straight through them. And there we go, 4,000 sand down. Might as well buy out the shop first, which comes with a little map, sprinting, a flare gun, and wall lights. A little cave is due west, and yeah, those flares work, but what the heck is this? I thought that maybe it was some kind of shrine, so I offered it some sand as a tribute. It did not like that. Well, how about gold then? Well, whatever. Moving onwards, there's also a couple big mountains over here, the peaks of which are made of ice. And there's this unpenetrable wall of purple haze that's making some pretty scary sounds. I'll leave that alone then. What's on the other side of the map? A desert and a pyramid. Neat. And another scary wall. Back on track, unlocking tier 2 reveals a bunch of stuff, starting with flamethrower, and the tutorial cat tells me that I should check out the ancient boiler ruins. It is indeed open now, but I'm too broke for the flamethrower, so give me a second. Side note, the sand dunes, when mined, turn back into sand dunes if left still. I'll be avoiding them then, since that seems annoying to deal with. Anyways, dirt shooken, flamethrower. Apparently the residue is flammable. Hopefully I didn't need it for something else. Entering the boiler room, we learn that the water cycle is manual around here, so flames get throwered, and up goes steam. The steam goes up pretty high before eventually falling back down as rain again, into the boiler ruins. Well, I'd prefer to hold on to that resulting water, so I stuck the steam in a box. Turns out, though, that the steam does have to touch the sky in order to turn back into water, at this exact level. Getting steamy, and I now own my own personal lagoon. It's not a puddle, it's a lagoon. Draining that slowly into the pond to prevent overflow, time for yet more sand, and another cave. This time with some ice, and a second more cavier cave. Cave Squared has some fluxite in it, which when mined gets collected and then can be spent to purchase tool upgrades. The one that looks the most interesting to me is Hydrosponge, which would let me pick up liquids. Tearing out more of that cave off camera, up comes yet more sand for our dustry. I'm so rich that I need a second bank. With that capital, we can keep researching. Conveyor belt portal sounds interesting, so I'll grab that, and set up a spot for a third offshore bank where I can avoid income taxes. However, the belt portals only go 3 tiles, so never mind my offshoring idea. My next idea was much better though. If we sort out the burnt from the unburnt residue, we can drop that on a kinetic press to turn it into more gold, which we also need to do that to unlock the next tier, 3,000 times. More gold and, seeds, I guess. Adding a seed to some water makes, unsurprisingly, a wet seed. I tried planting it in some dirt, but that didn't work, so I guess we'll have to come back to it. Poking around the tech tree a bit more, sweeper drones, which pick up stuff and move it somewhere else. Interesting. And thermal buffers, which can hold flamethrower heat. There is also burner belts, but I ended up never using them. Burnt residue goal met, but the base layout is a mess right now, so I'll take a second to reorganize, as the next tier unlocks planter boxes, and our next goal is to grow 4,000 flowers. Oh, and gun. Wait, there's a gun? We'll look at that later. The new base design is based on sorting out all of the random items we're getting into little boxes, one for each type. And I'll make a lot of room for seeds, since I suspect we're going to need it. In goes a long fall for the burnt residue, whereafter it'll be sent upwards again to get sorted out. Now, the planter box. Dropping a wet seed on that yields a little flower. And my first instinct is to set it on fire, which is a good choice, since doing so turns the flower into gold and amethyst. After testing how the flowers grow a bit more, I discovered that if you stack a ton of seeds on top of the planter box, you end up with genetically improved super flowers that grow really fast, and the planter boxes let gold and amethyst fall straight through them. Interesting, but to make a lot of flowers, we're going to need a lot of seeds, which, while our current shaking setup has gotten us this far, it could still be improved. Not before I get sidetracked spelunking, however, this time revealing a little puzzle with ice and water, where if you touch the water, you get teleported up here. The goal seems to be that Geometry Dash skin, but I ain't got time for no puzzles, so off I go to grow more flowers. Hand mixing a quite substantial amount of water into the seeds, then I let them all grow into this flower amalgam before finally setting it on fire, which took a very, very long time to burn away. But it did leave us with quite a lot of gold and petals. Stuffing those petals into a box, I unlocked fluids. Then using pumps, pipes, and vents, we can automate seed wetting to automatically grow even more flowers. Moving so many petals is a pain, but there's also fans that we can use to blow things around. Turns out we already had more than enough seeds to hit the tier goal. So onwards we go. The next step in the refining chain involves drying and liquefying the petals down into florinol, which is also our goal. And after an extremely loud subsurface scan, the cat lady informs me that I also need to go look at an anomaly below us. On my way down there, though, I got sidetracked by this other puzzle, which is not really much of a puzzle, more of just a light things on fire and wait situation, which I still failed at. Picking up whatever this is, I get to click this blue button, then this purple one, which makes me run around faster. Remember when I said I was going to build that new refining setup? Well, now I actually got around to doing that. Usually the game tries to make you build shakers diagonally to let gravity do all the work, but if you place them one by one, you can instead get a nice flat row of shakers that still works the same. Building them like this seems to save quite a lot of space, and at least personally, I think it just looks nicer. With that scaled all the way up, now onto drying and condensing the flower petals. Just kidding. Gun. And vacuum. Which does what it says on the tin, it vacuums things. For real this time, drying and condensing, and Logistics Mark II, which adds faster belts and throwers, along with Rocket Launcher, and a snow gun, which will actually be very handy since we're nearly out of water. Using a pyro dispenser, aka a wall-mounted flamethrower, along with the condensers we just unlocked, we can melt the snow into steam, then turn that back into water for collection. It's not very fast, but it does at least give us a way to make infinite water for seeds. Now that I've successfully wet myself, let's get deflowered, since we're completely out of room for petals at this point. The first step will be to steam the petals with a steam dryer, which will, well, dry them into dry petals. We can then light those dry petals on fire to turn them into florin gas, which we can then condense back into florinol, which is our current objective. Steam for that is as easy as a Braille spelling bee, then in go the petals to the metals, which dry them out. Adding a condenser to that, I'll add some snow, and we start making our first florinol. We also get gold from doing this, which you would usually sort out by using a filter like so, but all the fluids fall through filters. So instead we'll do the opposite, just letting the fluid fall through into a collection tank. Now we just need to do this, a lot of times, to amass a collection of florinol. Yet again, we've ran out of water for wetting sand and germinating seeds, so up to the ice caps we go, melting them down in quite a striking metaphor. pumping that up like a Tonka truck. Even more petals get dried and liquefied until we hit 10,000 florinol. I would gun it for the next tier, but I was blocked by something, so thinking it might be monetarily related, I bought everything, including the Golden Corraller, which lets you collect creatures, adding them to a conservatory where you're rewarded with ticks to buy a bunch of different rewards. But you and I both know that the retro console is probably the only thing worth buying in here. Regardless, unlocking literally everything else still didn't unblock the tier. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That anomaly lies below what I've explored so far, hidden behind a rock wall that I needed rockets to blow up. There's two little dudes back here too, shinelets. I'll abduct them and turn them into currency. More rummaging around, there's a big pool of lava, which I would yoink to take it home, but apparently I'm not allowed to. Another easy puzzle, letting me sprint for even longer, and I find red soil, which is soil that is red. Brilliantly named. I wonder what the sand version of it is called. Anyway, here's the anomaly, a spooky spiky orb. With reality permanently damaged, at least I think, we can keep researching. The next tier is all about electricity. We'll need to stockpile 100,000 of it to unlock the next tier. That seems like a lot. Following a suspicious dirt arrow, here's another one of those shrine-looking things. Collecting the key opens a portal, and... oh, that's what it's for. After checking if you could feed it dirt, you can't, and picking up some more little dudes, I stumbled onto copper ore, which, while I don't know it right now, we'll need it later. I wanted to see if that red sand was useful for anything, so I brought it up to the surface and dunked it in the water, which didn't get it wet. Then I tried to shake it, which did nothing as well. Well, maybe I need red water to get it red wet. Whatever. I'll throw it over here. We've now collected enough of the little creatures to unlock the retro console, which had some very fast snake, Breakout, which I totally nailed, and Flappy Bird, which I couldn't even score 1 on. Back to the actual game, the first new research in the tree is Florinol Battery, which turns that purple juice into electricity juice. And I'll also grab Snowmaker while I'm in here, which would help me automate petal processing just a little bit more. And the electrodes go into that battery tank, giving us around 6,000 energy. Well, we're certainly going to need a lot more. Grabbing a few more things here, drill, which runs off of said energy, smelter, which uses heat to melt stuff, and copper mold, which will let us cast liquid copper into copper bricks that can store electricity, somehow. Snowmaker's above the condenser setup, getting charged with battery and a salt on top of that. Then I tried plugging in the water with pipes, but it turns out it needs the actual liquid water on top of it instead. Automated snow. Still don't have a way to keep this hot though. Another upgrade that I forgot to mention is the material scanner for the grabber, which lets you see more information about the items you're hovering over, which would have been useful earlier. Well, I'll go get some copper, which you have to use the new drill for, but the drill pulls power from those batteries remotely, so once those are drained, you can't mine anymore. There was also another mysterious arrow in the dirt, revealing yet another puzzle. A maze this time, but mazes are really easy if you just follow the right wall, as opposed to the wrong wall. Even faster sprint in tow, I spotted another lava pool. Hovering over it this time, we can see that it interacts with water and is also freezable. Blasting it with snow is the solution, which solidifies it, after which you can break it up into cinder. I'll take a lot of that home, and then we can pour it on top of the flamethrower setup for the petals, and light it up for a nice persistent source of heat. Although, our batteries are acting a bit strange. The power symbol went away. Turns out, underneath the cathodes, the liquid has solidified into florinol soil, which you can then break back up into liquid again. Maybe it was because I was mixing water with it? I'll grab energy connectors to let me separate the power delivery from the water. Well, no, it couldn't have been that, since it's all solid down here too. I guess it just solidifies when you pull the electricity out of the fluid. You can at least set it on fire like a lithium-ion battery to break it up though, which is convenient. I don't know how, but I've beat it. Yeah, turns out I hit a bug when I was messing with the batteries that underflowed the amount of electricity I had for one frame, setting it to over 4 billion. Whoops. I'll just pretend that didn't happen and go hit 100,000 again normally. So we're gonna need to make some of those copper blocks to up the density. Casting the molten copper into the molds is easy, but we're going to need a lot more. Adding a bunch more lava to keep the smelters hot, then I grab the energy siphon tool, which will let me transfer power out of the batteries and into the copper blocks. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, then setting up the flamethrowers to automatically burn the solidified battery. There is another way to make power though, steam turbines. That sounds like it'll use a lot of water. Water that we are out of again, so you know what that means. I spent way too long blowing up, vaporizing, and carving out the mountain, this time using a new laser I unlocked, although it does consume a crazy amount of power to shoot. A full half hour of water gathering later, I set up this little steam turbine. Turns out that the water it uses is in a closed loop, so I didn't really need to gather as much as I got. While waiting on those batteries to fill up, let's take a look at the Void Rift, which makes Void Seed. After the Rift spaghettifies me, that's the real technical term by the way, it starts spitting out the Void Seeds, which can then be planted to make this tiny Void Flower. This one isn't flammable though, so taking a more American approach, the flower breaks down into Void Petals, which can be mixed with red sand or moon hop. Hey, wait a second, we have some of that over here. Carefully mixing in the red sand, we get Void Bloom, which can then be stuffed into a Fluximananator. Once bananaed, it turns into Fluxite, which is that resource that we use to buy upgrades. I'm happy with the upgrades I have already, so let's go check out Moon Hop. Moon Hop comes from these blue crystals, resulting in a pink powder. Although it is a lively one, bouncing around quite vigorously if you do not contain it. Mixing that with the petals, we get Void Juice, which is kind of like Slurp Juice, but purple, null, and void. The only use I could see for the juice is charging the Locator, which can be used to find alien artifacts. So I charged the Locator, turning the juice into Void Husk. No, I did not fire it. The last thing in our Void adventure is the Recall Shard, which is supposedly powered by Void Bloom, but I couldn't get it to work. But we've now overshot our power goal by almost 3 times, so let's unlock the next tier. The cat is back, sans the hat, and tells us that Big Boss here is mad because the EPA is hot on our tail, so we need to cover it up by collecting the strata core. I had no idea where that was, so I shot the locator gun. What happened? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but there is a waypoint on the map now. Whether or not the locator added it, I do not know. But it's smack dab in the middle of an area I've already explored. So flying down there, we find the stratocore. It appears to be reaching out with some tendrils of growing grass and petting me on the head, which is actually kinda cute. Threat neutralized, and a long animation later, we pick it up and then we can place it back down again, which does whatever this is, which is scary. So into the desert it goes. The tiles this makes can be blown up, so you can use it as an infinite source of sand. Next research time. The synthesizer, which while in the hands of Daft Punk could be used to make bangers, instead we'll use it here to convert materials. What materials? No idea. Unlocking it also reveals the aura extractor. No cap, fam. The cat speaks again, telling me that the synthesizer can turn florinol into aurexite, which can then be shooken into aura. Facts for real, brah. We'll need 1,000 of it to do coalescence. Whatever that is. I'll leave some miner drones here to play the part of Sisyphus as I head back to the lab. Powering the synth, in goes some florinol, and out comes aurexite, which, unlike all the other items in the game, holds its shape and doesn't spill into a pile. Chucking that into what's shaken bacon, and out comes pure Auralite Gang 100 skull emoji. We can mass produce that aurexite by draining our batteries into it, but moving it around is a bit of a chore due to the lack of gravity, so it needs a lot of launchers. But eventually it makes its way back to the Shake Shack and gets turned into Aurora Borealis. 1,000 of it, and another phone call later, we're told to aura farm with the aura extractor, so we'll bust it down right here. All of the aura starts to orbit and crystallize into chunks, whereafter you can control this little swarm of nanobots to collect it. Man, this is pretty. Although I would like to move it a bit upwards. Crap. After slowly cleaning that up that ups, and in goes more aura. Now it's just a waiting game to collect the crystals with nanobots, but there thankfully are a few upgrades to speed up the process. While waiting, I got bored and did some more exploring, catching a couple more of these little guys. That's when I realized that these creatures had tooltips. What do you mean creates water? Gee, that would have been nice to know earlier. With enough aura farming, we can cash in and get a lava gun, which was cool, if not a little bit too late to be useful. More waiting, and that's 1,000 aura, fam. With that aura, we can unlock the next tier. Or we would if this wasn't the end of the current build of Early Access. So that's all we get for now. It took me about 11 hours to get to this point. A bit anticlimactic, but yeah, the end. But that's not the end of the video, as now I need to take a moment to thank my supporters on Ko-fi. Hi, this is a bit of a weird video. I got sent a key to play Sandustry just 5 days before this video went up. Not sponsored, by the way, so it's a little bit rushed. I'm still in the middle of working on my Bobs and Angels Factorio videos, but I thought this would be a nice opportunity to quickly get out a video for you guys. Now, did I like Sandustry? Yeah, it was pretty fun. I watched my friend beat the demo quite a while ago, so I knew it was going to be good, hence why I immediately jumped into making this video. There's still a few kinks to iron out, but overall it's looking pretty good. I wonder what they'll add next. And that's all for today. My name's DocJade. Bye-bye.